Hello, beautiful people. Guess what? I have my first guest ever. This is a big day for Basement Philosophies because I've never had a guest. And Alex, you are my first guest. Welcome.
Oh my goodness, I'm honored.
This is new for me, so if anyone is listening, bear with me because I'm a little nervous to be on camera. Okay, no one's ever seen my face. I've been talking anonymously for years. Um, so me and Alex, we kind of met online. She's one of my new friends. It was kind of, I always appreciate friendships like this because I made a comment, she responded, agreeing with me, and I just kind of asked her, I was like, hey, I've got a small podcast. You want to be a part of it? And thankfully, she didn't laugh and she was like, yeah. And we got together, was it 2 weeks ago? Two,
Just about.
yeah. And we talked. I should have recorded that. I told her I should have recorded it. It was awesome, but it turned out like it was the first time we talked and we just talked for hours. And I love when I meet people like that, when you just connect and you can talk for hours. And I just was like, this is incredible. And I feel like I made a new friend that day. And I am in my 30s, so that doesn't happen. I'm in 30s and a mom, so that really doesn't happen. Um, we're both therapists. I associate, you're an associate.
Mhm.
And we are what's known as in the industry like a problem therapist. So people don't want to hire us people don't want to hire us at their group practices. I think I've touched a little bit on my experience with grad school and the job I got fired from, just for, kind of speaking up. Granted, others will have you say I had created a toxic environment due to gossip. I guess that's what you would call it.
A reframe.
Yeah. So because I spoke up about certain things, I was then labeled toxic, fired, couldn't finish school. And then I was labeled as a problem therapist or whatever they call us. I don't know what they call it. So she's from Wisconsin, I'm from Texas, and I find it fascinating that we've kind of been dealing with the same thing. So Alex, I'm going to turn it to you, and why don't you tell us a little about yourself and kind of let's just discuss how you got here.
Yeah. Well, my journey, I could probably tell you for hours long my story, but I won't. I won't bore you with all the details, but basically what landed me here was I have worked in a lot of different settings. Practicum was in community mental health. My internship was at a high school. I've worked in hospital settings. I worked at a group practice. And this past March, I finally was like at a crossroads. I was like, I love what I do. I love doing therapy. I love being a counselor. I love waking up every day and doing the thing that I love. But the places that I've been working in have been actively, preventing me from doing the job that I know that I can do. I don't like following other people's rules. I don't like other people telling me what to do. Um, so I just kept coming across toxic work environments. And it's funny because I feel like people, when nurses talk about being understaffed or short-staffed, or doctors talking about how stressful it is, no one really bats an eyelash. But then when therapists complain about unethical or toxic work environments, people are kind of just like, it's an uncomfortable topic. People don't really want to talk about it. I think a lot of the assumption is, oh, well, you work in mental health, so everybody must be really nice and everything must be, centered and prioritizing your mental health. But it is not that way at all. I listen to clients talk all day long for work. And a lot of them, I don't actually have any therapist clients. But the clients that I have that work other jobs, it's so interesting because I'll sit there and I'll listen to them talk about their work environments and I'll be sitting there and I'm like, you have no idea I'm going through that exact same thing right now. And so it's kind of like this paradox of like sitting with people talking about harmful work environments while you're in a harmful work environment. And so it's really challenging to deal with that sort of thing. So this past March, I said, F it. I did the thing that a lot of therapists do, which is they wake up one day and they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. And they start their own practice. So one March evening, I opened up my laptop. I went in my home office and I spent hours till about 3 in the morning figuring out how to create an LLC, what type of business insurance I needed, liability insurance, all that stuff, everything. And then by the morning I had the LLC created, and here I am now. So it's funny because, like you said, we're both associates. So in Wisconsin, we call it LPCITs in training, but it's the same thing as associates. So I use that too. The terms are interchangeable. But I wanted to start talking about some of the experiences that I had in the mental health field, but I kind of was like, well, I'm an associate still, so are people going to even hear what I'm saying? Are people going to be like, oh, well, you're so new, so sit down and shut up? Because that's very much the attitude in the mental health space. There is this hierarchy, there is this totem pole, and associates and ITs are kind of at the way, way, way bottom. We're right above interns, so we have that, I guess. But no, I also was very much like, I kind of feel weird, coming online talking about my experiences, but as soon as I started sharing about some of the things that have happened to me in graduate school, in internships, at group practices, I started realizing how many people have had similar experiences as me. And it sucks because I'm like, oh man, like I went through a crappy thing. I don't want other people to also go through a crappy thing. But it was also validating and like, this is not just a me problem. This is a systemic issue. This is not just one little therapist in Wisconsin. This is happening to therapists in Texas. This is happening to therapists in Ohio. This is happening to therapists all across the United States, all across the world, where we're all, dealing with a lot of these things that, the field in and of itself like was not created for our sustainability, that's for sure. And a lot of these things that we've dealt with, feels like there's easy solutions to prevent some of this stuff, to where it's like, yeah, there's some things where it's like, well, nobody could have predicted that. But then there's other things where I'm like, no, there should be a law in place here, or there should be a policy in place here so that these things don't continue happening to students, to interns, to therapists, things like that.
Have you ever seen like the Reddit thread board for therapists? It is a brutal one.
I don't know what's worse, the Reddit thread for therapists or local therapist Facebook groups. They're both pretty bad.
I
Which
don't
actually
even bother with Facebook. Don't get me started.
don't. Yeah, it's funny. I'll like see a comment and I'll think to myself, man, this is someone's therapist and they're wilding out on a local therapist Facebook group, and people everywhere like have no idea that their therapist is saying the most horrible, vile, nasty thing to another therapist, and then going back to go work with clients. It's terrible. And I also don't want to like, there is a lot of pressure on therapists to be like perfect, to be, really great. And like it all makes sense. And I don't want to ever like make it sound like we're all bad. But like there are things that every profession should talk about. And we shouldn't just like ignore, because I feel like a lot of us feel like, we're screaming and yelling and everybody is just like, I'm just gonna pretend like it's not happening. I can't hear it. I can't see it. I'm just gonna look away. And we need less of people turning the other cheek because it's easier, and we need more people advocating for us to be treated better, because the better that we're treated, the more of us that there will be, and we won't have shortages, and we'll, better serve our community. But if we keep being stepped on, you know, there aren't going to be therapists, and then there isn't going to be therapy, and then people aren't going to get help. So it's inevitable, really.
Well, people are turning to like Chat GPT for therapy, and that's a real problem.
Yeah. Definitely. This is definitely a nuanced conversation. I know people that find value in using AI, and things like that. So I'm not 100% against it. I definitely think that we should look at the concerning aspects of it, but in terms of using it for therapy, it just speaks to a greater, bigger problem of like, we have to start with, why are people using ChatGPT for therapy? And obviously the cost of therapy and things like that, all kind of go into it. But there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes in the mental health space, as you know, obviously. And I think people aren't realizing like that people using ChatGPT for therapy is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more nasty, bad stuff happening behind the scenes where like it's, unfortunately, the way I see it, is only getting worse.
So we're kind of, it seems, I find that we're talking behind a curtain right now. So
Yeah.
let's tell the people, what is it exactly that we're talking about? So when I say that I was basically fired from an internship 7 weeks before graduation, um, I was talking specifically about exploitation in the field, regarding like pay and clients and things like in a group practice setting. And I want to know your take on that.
Yeah. Um, the way that I view it, and like you said, it very much feels like we're talking behind a curtain. The way I see it is we're exploited from the very beginning. We're exploited before we're even licensed when we have to do internships. Now, I'm not anti-internship. I'm fully well aware of like we shouldn't just, expect people, students to learn from a textbook, learn from classes, and then just be shot out into the real world and become therapists. That's not what I think at all. But internships should be paid. Um, let's just start there. So I don't know about the area that you're in, but the area that I'm in, I can only think of one singular internship site that pays their interns. Every other place, they kind of frame it as like, oh, we're giving you this great opportunity to get, experience in the field, blah, 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 blah. And then you're like, okay. And then they're like, oh, well, it's unpaid. And what people that aren't therapists don't realize is that you need to do these internship hours in order to graduate. So you can't skip internship. There's no, it's part of the curriculum. So we are essentially being forced into free unpaid labor. And it's not like on TV when you see like a kid in a student in New York City where they're like, oh, I'm at an internship at Chase Bank, and I'm in a high rise building, and I'm it is not that. It is not glamorous at all. The internships are almost always in community mental health. And what I could never understand once I got out of it was I sat there and I really thought about it, and I was like, is anybody going to ask, is anyone going to use critical thinking skills? Is anybody going to ask themselves the real questions of why is it that we take the most inexperienced clinicians, graduate level interns, why are we pairing them with the most vulnerable community? We're giving the least experienced therapists, interns, and pairing them with, community mental health, which is, severe and persistent mental illness, it's homelessness, it's addiction, it's psychosis, it's suicidality. The most severe cases of mental illness, we're giving them to people who just are dipping their toe into the mental health space. It makes absolutely no sense to me. And to be honest, it's not safe for us as young professionals, and it's not safe for the clients either. And so that is something that I didn't really think about while I was doing it. I loved my time in community mental health. I really loved the clients. That was not the part that I disliked. And anytime I talk about disliking the mental health space, it's literally never about clients. I love my clients, every single one I've ever worked with. I feel like holds a special place in my heart. I love doing therapy, and I'll reiterate it till the cows come home. I love doing therapy, but the environment that we're forced to do therapy in has some problems.
Most people that I know, they're burned out before they can even get started.
Right.
So, and then I have a very good friend of mine. Hi. Maybe she'll see this, but I don't want to say her name because I don't know if she wants me to tell everybody her business. But like I mentioned this before, I think when we spoke, she is trying to basically get out of community mental health and she's burned out. She doesn't like it. She is a 5-year fully licensed therapist and she's trying to go out and maybe start, at a group practice and they're still wanting to take 50% of everything that she makes, 50 to 60%, and they think that they're doing her a favor. That's how they like they
Yeah.
email you and they're just like, "Oh yeah, only 50/50 and you get this like, okay, I know that there may be a seasoned therapist somewhere listening to this. I don't know. I mean, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. But they're like rolling their eyes because they're like, what do these two young little baby therapists, hate that phrase, by the way, but what do they know? Well, I know that I hated being exploited so much that I had to start, or I didn't have to, but I chose to start my own business. If you've ever tried, any entrepreneur will say it's like so hard to start and try to build a client. Like, oh, there's a lot of money to be spent up front with a lot of nothing happening afterward. And so it's very, very discouraging. But, I do know what, overhead is. And, I know that I need to keep it low. And like I get that it can be expensive. But what I don't get is that there are people out there. I think the comment that we connected on was a woman saying, uh, we have no idea what it's like to have a business and it's so expensive and she's barely making ends meet, even taking 50% from every employee that she has. And my thought is, my God, woman, are you a terrible business owner that
Yeah.
you're taking this much from your employees and you can't pay for anything? I can't.
Sounds like a bad business model.
Yeah,
And
it like really does.
yeah.
And what we're being called to do as associates and interns is we have to hold up these failing business models. Um, because they're banking. I'm sorry. I don't die on a lot of hills and I'm very, very much open-minded. But these therapists that have managed to get a group practice off the ground are rolling in it. Okay.
Yeah, right. And if you have a bunch of employees and you're taking 50% of all of their paychecks and you're not rolling in it, then you have a problem.
Yeah.
Truly. So, no, it's so funny. I think what we connected on was something that I've noticed. Anytime I see a thread, whether it's Reddit or if it's a Facebook post or it's an Instagram, whatever, anytime I see somebody attempting to just simply critique the group practice model, without fail, no matter what, a group practice owner hops on and they get all ready and they come and they defend it. And like it's wild to me because I sit here and I'm like, sure, can I objectively say that like maybe there are group practices out there where people feel like they're being fairly compensated. Maybe it really does feel like a real team. Maybe people are making what they want to make and seeing the clients that they want to see. Um, Sure. But from my experiences, from experiences that I've talked with other therapists in my state, not in my state, a lot of us are feeling the same feelings of like, wait a second, like group practices became this like golden ticket opportunity of like, oh, do you want to get out of community mental health? I know you're burned out. Let me give you the solution. And then the solution is, and I'm sorry, I don't know. Somebody from a different profession can hop on here and say, wait, that happens in our profession too. But I don't know personally of any other professions where like the norm and the standard is here you go, you're going to come work for me and it's a 50-50 split. Like what do you mean? And I remember being told that and not thinking anything of it because I heard from other people saying, "Oh, that's normal. Oh, that's normal." Oh, well, yeah, my split is 60-40 or my split is 70-30. And I remember thinking, okay, I get it. I don't expect to work for somebody for completely free. If I'm working for someone else's business, obviously I'm not dumb. I know that like, no, people aren't just hiring people for free. But then the other thing too that was sold to me, which is sold to a lot of people, is the glorious independent contractor. Ooh, you're a 1099, so even though we're taking 50% of your check every week, you at least can write things off because you're a 1099. And so like that is at least how it was like sold to me. And then I was like, oh, well, that sounds great. Writing stuff off sounds awesome. Until you like realize how messed up it is.
Yeah, like can like imagine making 100 grand a year. Not only, and if you're 1099, you have to take your own taxes out, right? And
Right,
so they're going to take 50%. You still have to take your own taxes out. You are making such a low number, and someone else gets to take half. And
right.
they're going to sell it to you and say, I have to pay for rent. I have to pay for software. You have your supervision is included, which
Right.
don't get me started. I like my supervisor, but I pay for her and it's separate from anything out there.
Yeah.
It's just yeah, it sounds good until you get in there and then you start not being able to feed yourself and your family and you're just like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, where is all the money going? And why is it in my pocket? And why do I have a master's degree and I can't put food on the table and I need to go find a second job? Like, no. Something is wrong here. And then, like you said, the lack of support in this industry is, it's bizarre. Like, it is so bizarre because it's very much a, well, I did my time, now it's your turn. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, but like, not only is the cost of living astronomically more and different, it's just kind of like I'm so I know that I'm going to be labeled as a complainer. That's what they say we are doing. We're complaining. But honestly, I'm looking
Ungrateful.
for, yeah, I'm really, yeah, ungrateful. I'm really looking just to speak out and find solutions. I'm not here to just bitch, like, yes, I could vent all day because it is frustrating because I'm going to tell you right now, I love being a therapist too. I love it so much. Like, I wake up and I'm excited and it's just like I really do. And I this was a career change for me later in my life, and I I, I could have given up, and I almost have, like, twice now, simply because of not even the work, the industry and the people in it and what they're asking of us and the way we're treated, and just the fact that, yes, we are associates and we must keep our mouths shut. And it's just kind of like, I've gotten to this place, like you said, it's this is like not, I don't want to say this is it for me, but this is the road I'm taking. I'm not going back. I'm not going back to work for someone. I'm like you. I don't like being told what to do. I don't like having a boss. I know that's not always good because I'm very
Right.
stubborn, and like I don't even like to tell myself what to do. Okay, like I could be like, okay, Brittany, we're going on a cleanse or whatever, and I'm just like, no, like it's insane. I got problems. But just to like I was saying, this is like the road I'm taking. I'm taking the entrepreneur road, but if I'm going to do this and I can build a client load, then I'm going to build a different model or
Mhm.
figure out something so that other people are not being treated the way that we have been. Because, you know, just like you said, the unpaid internship, which I had to do twice. So it took me about 2 years to really finish because I had to start over. Thank you, um, person that fired me and humiliated me, but whatever. I'm over it, whatever. um, but it's just kind of like, yeah, you get to this place and you're just like, okay, I can choose to be different. or I could choose to be bitter, or I can do what everybody else is doing. Like you said, I could hide. This is not happening. This is not. Yes, I'm doing just fine, so I'm not going to look at anything else. But the thing is like you said, it's a systemic issue, and if people don't start talking and people don't start doing things differently, then this will cease to exist, because people like
Right.
us, especially like new ones who still have like hope, it's
Right.
not yeah, it's not beaten out of us yet. Like,
And passion, yeah.
yeah, if our passion dies out, because we're being exploited to this degree, then we're going to leave the field. And then, yes, we'll like the field will have only the greedy ones left. Because,
Right.
well, why?
Trust me,
I mean,
y'all do not want that.
no, like they aren't. Some of them just really aren't nice people. Okay.
This is true.
So, I'm curious what I'm curious where you are now. So having gone through everything that you've gone through, so it's no secret, especially now that exploitation is happening and more people are talking about it. It's just kind of hard to find, but people are talking about it. And I'm curious, was there ever a point in your journey where your spirit was kind of broken?
It's really tough because I wake up every day and I love what I'm doing now. But I truly, if I didn't have the means to open up my own business and become an entrepreneur and be a business owner and have a solo private practice, um, I don't know if I would still be in this field, to be honest. I was like, I have one more shot at this. I don't want to do a hospital. I don't want to do a group practice. I don't want to do community mental health. I cannot do it anymore. And I felt broken a lot of times. I could go through like point A to point B and I could identify every single time where I was like, I almost gave up then. The closest I ever got to giving up was I was at my dream school. And when I say dream school, I mean it to the fullest. I'm talking before I applied to this school, I slept with a hoodie underneath my pillow because for good luck, because I like ever since I was little, I wanted to go to the school. So I get in, I go through, and it was a pretty cutthroat interview process. Like it wasn't just like a they let anybody in kind of thing. I had to go through a full day of interviews. It was pretty rigorous. I get in, I'm at the school of my dreams, so I thought. Long story short, I was at an internship site. Something happened to me. I was put in a place where it was easy for me to be harmed. I called out the harm, told supervisors about the harm, and long story short, my school had a problem with me speaking up about being harmed by my site. So much and so far as to tell me, and a lot of these grad programs, you don't really get a choice in where you're interning. So they just tell you, this is the place that has an opening. You're going to now go work there for a year, 2 years, or however long your internship ends up having to be. That was not the case with mine, though. So different schools have different rules. So some schools, it's on the student to choose the internship and find it and whatever. At my school, it was the school's responsibility. For some reason, they were very rigid about, we have to find it for you. We have to pick it for you. So basically what happened was I called out some harmful things. The school was notified. The school took the internship side. I had two professors look at me and say, we typically don't allow students to change internships, but because of your, we consider what happened to you to be an extreme circumstance, we'll let you choose, we'll let you work at a different internship. But not for nothing. It was very much positioned to me as, we'll do you a favor if you do us a favor. And I was like, okay, what? What do you want? I'm traumatized from a situation at my internship, and now they're asking me for a favor. And by the way, it's really wild. When I had this experience, my professors had no interest in helping me other than saying, you have a therapist, right? And I said, yeah, I do. And they said, okay, good. So you can talk about it with them. And that was the amount of support that I got from my professors, which before this ended up happening, before I, called out my internship site, my practicum site, I was doing well on all my assignments. I was getting good feedback. Everything was great until all this happened. And so my professors looked at me and they said, we'll let you switch your internship, but you're not allowed to tell any of the other students that we're letting you switch because we're doing this as a favor to you. And we don't want other students to get the idea that if they have problems at their internships that they can switch too. Because, and then they told me, because we've had a lot of students complain about their internships and want to switch, and we don't want to let them. So if they see that we let you switch, then they're going to get mad and upset. So can you do us a favor and not tell anyone? Now, Brittany, I know you know how this works because you went to school to be a therapist too. We have a class called internship class where we have to speak about our internships. How would like people would have known that all of a sudden I'm talking about a different site. So anyway, so then I accepted that because I was like, I'm halfway done with my master's. I just need to finish and then I can go do whatever I need to do. Fast forward, the summer comes and goes. The professor that was in charge of finding me a new internship was not emailing me, was not getting back to me. I was emailing her there, and it got to a point where it felt like they were purposefully not finding me an internship. And I needed an internship by fall because what they said to me was, if we don't find you one by fall semester, you're going to have another year added onto your program because there's classes that you cannot take until you're done with your internship classes. So I was put in a position where I could not do anything. I reached out to internship sites myself, forwarded those communications with my professor, and my professor said, you are not allowed to choose your internship. We have to choose one for you. But you're not finding me one, so I took it upon myself to find my own, and then they didn't like that. So lo and behold, what happens, Brittany? Fall semester rolls around and they say, I'm so sorry, Alex. Unfortunately, we didn't find you one. And unfortunately, you're going to have to do an extra year of your program. My school is very expensive. This shit is not cheap. No college is cheap, but this school in particular was very expensive. And I said, I'm not doing another year. And when I tell you, I had a professor look at me and she said, well, what's another year? What's one extra year?
Thousands of dollars.
Tens of thousands of dollars on top of working for free in an unpaid internship and on top of another year of homework. So I looked at I went home and I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I don't think I can be a therapist anymore. I this is where I have to throw in the towel. I already have thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands in student loans. Like I cannot, I don't have another year in me. So fall semester rolled around and I said, I'm not signing up and paying for fall semester if I don't have an internship and you guys failed to find me one. And I don't want to hear any excuses of, well, internships are really hard to find. And they are. I'm not saying that they're. But I find it a little weird, don't you, that they were very like, no, you're not allowed to find one yourself. It has to be the school. If I find one, you guys are saying I need an internship to graduate. What are we doing here? Like, so I left, and for about a month, we can use the word dropout because I dropped out of the program. And things were not looking good for me. I emailed multiple different colleges to see if I could just like finish the rest of my master's there. And nearly every college I talked to, basically they wanted me to start completely over. They were not going to accept any of the credits that I already did. I already did a year and a half of classes. And so by the grace of whoever, someone up there was looking out for me. And only, about a month later, a local college near me, I contacted, and they originally told me that they couldn't accept my credits and I'd have to start my master's degree over. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that again. But thankfully they called me back a couple weeks later and they were like, hey, actually, just kidding. We talked to the admissions people and you only have to do like a couple more classes. So thankfully I was able to finish. I graduated, everything like that. My second internship was also a nightmare. It was a supervisor that it was not a good situation. I very much felt like I was treated like a servant. Literally from me doing everything for her, stuff like that. I won't get into too much detail with that one, but yeah, so I went from a practicum site where I was in danger, spoke up about it. School then did not like me. Professors from that point on started treating me differently. I felt like I was pushed out and forced to leave. Of course, it was obviously my choice, but I definitely felt pushed out. Found a new school, got a new internship, started having a different experience, but started speaking up about this internship. And then I was met with, well, you know, we might not be able to, give you the hours that you need. And then I thought, oh my God, I'm this close to the finish line. I was set to graduate in December. Um, and and I was like, I don't have it in me. I cannot risk, leaving this internship, having to waste more time being unpaid, and trying to attempt to find a new internship to where I was like, I just need to buckle down. So I spent from September to December with my head down. I shut my mouth. I, didn't express anything. I just literally did everything that I could. I was for sure in survival mode. And it's like some years later, and I still think about both internship experiences because they were both traumatic for me. And it's really disappointing. I'll say one of the hardest parts to deal with all of that isn't even because I think it's really easy for people to say, well, you know what, like, at least you're fine now. You got the degree at the end of the day, like, so what, whatever. But it's not even as much as, those instances. It's the fact that when those instances were happening, I got like no support. My professors are teaching us how to be therapists, and then they're not having any empathy for a traumatic experience that I went through. It almost feels like a lot of times when therapists speak about harm from internships, harm from supervisors, harm from workplaces, bosses, managers, whatever, it's like all of a sudden all their empathy is gone, their validation skills are non-existent, and it's like I sit there and I think but if I was a client of yours, you'd have empathy, you'd be able to validate my experiences, you would want to help support me and connect me to resources. But when it's another therapist, it feels like people are either like, well, that didn't happen to me, so I don't care. Or yeah, that really sucks, but like I don't want to think about it. So a lot of people just look the other way. And all I would have needed was just maybe a professor, one, or one coworker or colleague or something to stand up and be like, no, like this is wrong. Why are you guys doing this? And I am glad that I didn't hold my breath because it didn't happen, because these things like don't typically happen. A lot of people want to say that they're advocates. A lot of people want to say that they're helpers. But then as soon as something like this happens, everybody just wants to look the other way. And I think that was the hardest part for me to, realize when I was processing it, is that like it wasn't only the harm that happened to me, it was the lack of support following the harm. And you know what, maybe you could say if it was any other program, then maybe we wouldn't expect, if I was like in a math program or something, maybe we wouldn't expect the math professors to know how to use empathy and validation because they're not therapists. But I'm in a therapy program. My professors have provided therapy and counseling, so I just don't understand why there's this disconnect of when a therapist is struggling or experiences trauma, therapists just like don't want to hear it or acknowledge it.
What's bizarre is that you earlier you said yes, we'll let you change your internship, but don't tell anybody because there's a lot of students like complaining. Okay, if a lot of students are complaining,
Thank you.
wouldn't that
Thank
tell
you.
you that there's an actual problem?
Yeah, right. And that's exactly what I thought because I sat there and I went, I like they were making it sound like everyone's just being dramatic. Oh, well, you just don't like your site for some stupid, silly little reason. But there were other students who, like yourself, there were other students in my program that got fired from their internship. There were students that were, signed up to do an internship where, I've heard from other peers at other jobs where, I've had instances where someone has said, oh, I did my internship at blank place, but I had such a negative experience that the school actually blacklisted it and they don't let students do their internship there anymore. And then I've heard someone talk about their internship at that same place. And then I'd look at them and I'd go, oh my God, they don't even know that like that place was supposed to be blacklisted, but the school just decided not to, I guess, or changed their mind. It's bizarre that these schools are more willing to protect these practicum and internship sites that they have a relationship with rather than the students that are paying their tuition.
Yeah. I know that there was someone in my class. She worked in a very busy clinic. She's fully licensed already too. And this place, it just seemed like there was like illegal shit happening. And even like the student was complaining about it, and like the professor was like, "Oh, we're definitely going to, report that." That place is still open. She still works there and she's making tons of money and it is fully licensed because she's so busy. So it's like, no, nothing ever happens. Nobody cares. Like, and like the fact that it's almost like, man, it's just like the corruption and the toxicity is getting to a point where like the dam is gonna have to break. Like the dam is gonna have to break. And I think it is. I think it is breaking.
I just said, and I think like, how many more students have to go through this? How many more students have to go through being fired from an internship? Now, I will also say that this is nuanced. Maybe there are students who maybe do some unethical thing and then they get fired. I'm not talking about that. That's a separate thing. Don't hear what I am not saying. That sort of thing. But things like that, things like, your school basically forcing you out, not allowing you to switch internships is strange and weird to me.
Yeah.
Especially, and then I'm sitting here and I'm like, all this trauma, and I wasn't even getting fucking paid. Like on top of that.
You
So,
weren't even
it's one
compensated for it.
right. And so yeah, and now I have like a lifetime of dealing with it in my head. But no, it's really disappointing to hear, stories in internship horror stories, supervisor horror stories. Like you mentioned earlier, I'm in the same boat where I like my supervisor now, but now the only reason why that is because I was able to choose my supervisor and I pay my supervisor out of pocket. Not everybody has that privilege. So a lot of people are sitting here right now as you and I are sitting here talking with supervisors from hell that they didn't get a choice in because the agency said this is your supervisor. Not all supervisors are created equally. There are people that want to be supervisors because they love helping new therapists, but there are a lot of supervisors that become supervisors because they like the power, they like being in control, they like the fact that they are what is in between you and graduation or you and your licensure. They like the fact that, oh, well, I'm the one signing off on your hours logs and it's up to me and I tell you when you're done, that sort of thing, which just sounds gross coming out of my mouth because it is. There are people that like power, and like to abuse it, unfortunately. And therapists, counselors, social workers, we're not excused from these things. Every profession has bad eggs, so to speak. But a lot of people don't want to talk about when ours does.
Right. And they're out there, but people don't talk about it because look at all the shit you have to go through. I totally get why people turn they turn
Right.
away. Like I totally get it. I like if I had um you know, I'm in a position that I'm very blessed that my husband, he provides for my family, my child. Yes, I want to start my own business, but like I said, it's a whole lot of cost up front. And then like now I'm trying to get clients, but it's very hard, especially like when you're kind of blacklisted in the area that you live in, right? Because I've been like, it was almost impossible for me to find a second internship because here at my school, you could find your own.
Mm.
So I like the idea of the school finding it, but after your story, never mind. Like, because I
Right?
didn't realize that they just didn't do it sometimes.
Yeah. And part of me sat there and was like, am I being unreasonable? Like, but no, I don't think so. I think that if I understand that like how it works is that these schools contract with these agencies, right? They probably have a legal agreement, a contract, whatever, saying, we agree to take your students, and because when we're pre-licensed and things like that, we're working under someone else's license. So someone else is accepting our liability and things like that and responsibility over our actions, which I get legal liability, all that stuff. I get it. I understand it. But at the same time, if you're not, if like the answer should not, this, it shouldn't be where students are just shit out of luck if, oops, sorry, we didn't find you an internship. Like that to me isn't fair at all. I don't know what the magic solution is. I don't even think that there is a magic solution, but I don't think that's the answer. Then you know what? Then I think instead of saying, oh, well, I guess we'll have to add another year onto your program, you know, switch up the curriculum and how it goes. But they're not going to do that. So it just was weird because it was like, well, it's very gatekeepy. Like, in order to go to the next level, you have to take this class and then you unlock the next step. And if you can't do your internship, then you don't get to unlock that next step. So then you have to sit and wait around when it's like, there's classes that I could be taking, but you guys, because of this rule of, oh, you have to take this class and then this class and then this class and then internship and then you can take this class and this class. It almost feels like even just that saying it out loud is like, oh, that's even stacked against us too. And I think all the time, like, people have no idea. Like, people meet with their therapists, every week, and they have no clue that all of the things that I experienced to be able to even just be sitting in the chair that I'm sitting in, they have no clue.
Right. But they shouldn't, like, because I would, if people knew, like, if my clients knew, like, would they even want to come to me anymore? They're like, oh, she's
Right.
got her problems. Like, maybe I shouldn't talk to her. Like, I don't want anybody to think that because, like, as we both stated, we love our jobs. We love it so much that we have managed to get through all of this shit, like you said, so we could sit in the chair.
Right.
But look at what it cost us. Like, any person listening to this that's not a therapist, understand, like, internship, you have to have a certain amount of hours. Well, I can't remember, like 300 a semester or however, I can't remember. You're trying to fit these hours into your day. A lot of people had jobs. I didn't have to work, thank God. But
Mhm.
I did have a baby, a medically complex baby. So and then so I had to find childcare. I had to go to these jobs, have my clients, finish my classes, and you just do your notes and then plus all the extra stuff that they need you to do, right? And
Yeah.
then you have to go and you have to find an extra hour to go in person to meet with your supervisor weekly. Like, and then you have to go meet with your school weekly for a second supervision. Like, it's not just, oh, have some clients and then there it is. No, it's an entire lifestyle. And for us, unpaid.
Right.
It's not just the unpaid part that's the problem. Cause like, you're exploited as a student. People, you're given clients that you shouldn't have, like you stated, like, because you just don't have the knowledge or the experience to be
Right.
dealing with Because like my second internship, it happened at the psych hospital here, and like it was a really good site. Like I had like people were always there. You know, I was only ever in charge of doing like group, but there was always I was never in danger. I had a lot of help, and it was like a good. It was a I didn't like working there, but it was a good experience. So I'm grateful for that. But at the same time, it's just kind of like um had it not been what it was, they could have thrown me into, you know, unit 3, which is severe psychosis, you know, and that's dangerous, you know, and a lot of people are put in these positions where their life is in danger and nobody seems to care. And then so you have this, then you have, and that's just graduate, that's you trying to graduate, because like you said, I had this similar experience where it was my last semester. Yes, I stood up for myself. I had been advocating for myself and fighting for myself, but like it got to the point where I was like, "Oh my God, just put your head down, do what needs to be done, and then
Right.
you like you'll graduate." Like, can I just fucking graduate already? And so I did, and I did think like I turned into a robot, honestly, like towards the end there. But I knew once I graduated, I didn't want to be a robot. And then once I started to look at group practices because I was like, well, you know, it'd be better to start getting hours and, you know, under someone else's umbrella, you know. But once I started to see like I just didn't have it in me to have someone take that much money from me anymore. I went from not getting paid to you now taking 50% or more. I couldn't, like, my soul was just like, no more.
Right.
So that's why, like, I am here, like, today. So I have Ember and Oak counseling here in Texas, just virtual right now until I can find space. And what about you?
I started gray area counseling in Wisconsin. I'm also fully virtual until I find the perfect office space. It's one of those things where I always knew I wanted to own my own business. I always knew that private practice was going to be my goal. It just the way that it happened ended up being not what I was planning mentally. But I think it ended up being really good for me. I'm still obviously learning how to run a business, how to be a therapist and a business owner, and things like that, because it's a completely different ball game than having someone else do billing for you, or always having someone else to go to and ask. Obviously, I still have supervision, but um, it's funny because like you'll hear a lot of seasoned therapists say things like I'm sure you've seen this where seasoned therapists will be like, well, I don't even think that ITs or associates should even be able to open up a private practice because like they're still new and they don't know what they're talking about. And I'm like, I laugh because I'm like, if you heard my experiences in community mental health, I've been in the trenches, honey. Like I don't need to pay my dues. My dues have been paid via working in community mental health, via internships and practicum sites where I was being unpaid and having to still provide therapy and mental health services. So like it's almost backwards where like I did the hard stuff first and now like private practice feels like a breeze. I love it so much. Getting clients is obviously really hard in this climate right now. People are struggling to afford things. A lot of people can't afford healthcare, things like that. So you know, these huge billion-dollar companies are crowding up all of our, space. So a lot of people can't even find solo private practice therapists anymore. So there's a lot of reasons why it's really hard to get clients. And it's that drives me nuts about these group practices because they know that. They know more than we know. I think it's so easy, like you mentioned before, to be like, when these practice owners say things like, well, you guys don't understand. We have a lot of overhead and blah, 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 blah. And I sit there and I'm like, now I have the bills that you have. And I can't imagine how are you going to tell me, a single solo practice owner, that I don't understand what you're going through in the overhead when I don't have 10 employees working under me and I'm getting 50% of other paychecks. I don't have that. It's just me by myself. So how are you going to go and complain about the shitty deal that you got when I'm not taking anybody else's money. I'm providing a service, and then clients in exchange for the service pay me, and that is it. So it's crazy the things that some of these group practice owners will say.
I'm curious why, like, the perspective of the whole, it's time for you to pay your dues. Like, why is it that in order to be a therapist, you have to go through a bunch of shit, you know? And I'm wondering why seasoned therapists would want that for their like therapists that are like new therapists. Why would you want someone to struggle? It's just bizarre. Like, what are your thoughts on that perspective?
I think that there's two types of people, and maybe a third or fourth type, but like I think that there's two types of people. I think there's a type of person like myself, like you, who go through a really shitty, traumatic, fucked up thing and then go, this really horrible thing happened to me. I don't want it to happen to anyone ever again, which is part of why I do therapist, rights and advocacy stuff on my business page, is because I thought to myself, I had no idea. Some of this stuff I've, heard rumblings and stories or things like that, but a lot of the things that I experienced firsthand, I had no idea what was coming for me. I had no idea, and I was completely unprepared. So if I can share a little bit about my story and my experiences and it can help one person, I love that. If I can prevent one person from, having to leave their school, or if I can, give somebody a heads up like, hey, by the way, sometimes these group practice owners, they'll try to stick a surprise contract when you go to leave to try to retain your clients and try to tell you that you can't tell your clients where you're going if you want to quit. If I can get ahead of that for somebody, I will, which is why I actively share my stories. And then to answer your question, and then I think that there are people, some of these seasoned therapists who are burned out. They were burned by the system just like we were, but they're so angry about it that they can't even take a step back and think, I don't want this to happen to other people. They're so angry about what happened to them, and maybe they were invalidated too, and no one ever, said, I'm sorry that that happened to you, or whatever it is. And so then they think, well, if I had to go through the struggle, then so do you, because it wasn't fair for me. So it's not fair that it's the same old, argument of when people are like, well, they shouldn't forgive student loans because you're the one that took them out. And what about all the people that paid their student loans back? Should they get the money back? It's the same thing where it's like, how about nobody suffers? How about we get rid of unpaid internships? How about we have more laws and regulations and statutes in place to protect graduate level interns and associate and ITs? Why don't we have legislation for that? Why is it that so much of our career is gatekept by people in power? Supervision, it's a power dynamic. Someone else is literally in charge of whether or not I can be fully licensed because somebody else has to sign my hours logs. They have to sign a piece of paper. Those sort of things. So I just think that there's two types of people that, experience pain, and because that pain was so bad, they don't want anyone to have to experience it. And then I think that there's people that are like, well, if I had to go through this, then you do too. And that attitude, like, is it's sad, because I can see behind that attitude and that probably hard exterior that it's probably a therapist that's really hurting because of the things that happened to them. And then I think that there might even be a third type of person that just like knows all this, but just like does not care. Or it's just easier for them to just pretend like I wasn't exploited. Like, I loved working for free.
Nobody loves working for free.
Right. So even people like, even if people had a positive experience, there's people too. They didn't have a traumatic internship or practicum experience, or they didn't have to leave their school, and maybe they liked their internship sites. Okay. Maybe they liked their supervisor. Okay, awesome, great. That's great for you, and I'm happy for you, and that's awesome. But that doesn't mean that there aren't hundreds and thousands of us with the opposite experience. So I think people, if they had a positive experience, it's hard for them to even look at it and be like, well, so what if I wasn't paid? But like, no matter what, we should be paid for the work that we're doing. We shouldn't have to balance, you know, work and homework and projects and supervision and all of this on top of, working in a system that burns us out. Like you mentioned earlier, there are, I'm very happy that I wasn't so burnt out to where I couldn't even do this, where I opened up my own business. But there are a lot of therapists, and my heart goes out to every therapist that one day woke up and said, this shit is not for me anymore. I can't do this anymore. I don't want to be exploited anymore. I love my clients. I love my patients. But, this, I just can't do it anymore. I'm so burnt out. I have to quit. I need to do a career change. My heart goes out to every single one of those therapists, because the way that I look at it is, how sad is it that there are therapists, or ex-therapists, if you want to call them that, who did all the school, they did all the training, they did all the homework, they did all the internships, and then the system burned them, and they, were so burnt out that they just couldn't do it anymore.
Just talking about like when you bring up school, like grad school, my chest just gets like so tight. The the papers and the projects and like we would write 20-page papers.
Yes.
Literally.
Yeah.
Nobody has time for that.
Right. Oh my God. And the like mock therapy session.
No.
Oh my God. I have so
Don't
I have so
bring it
many
up.
videos. I have so many videos from that time that I'm like, one day I'm gonna sit there and watch, but I can't because they're so cringe, because it's really hard to like simulate the therapy experience in a classroom with your students. It just, I don't know. I think it's a dumb technique. I get why they make us do it, but like it never really feels like that. And that's like the kind of like the whole point of our field, is that like it's really hard to get real experience with like without just like being thrown into it. But I feel like they just they take us on a boat and they just push us off in the middle of the ocean, no life preserver, no nothing, and it's you have sharks circling around you, and they're like, well, just swim. And if you're drowning, you're like, help, I need help. And then they're like, oh, well, nobody gave me anything, so you need to, like, it just it's sad, because if we all just lifted each other up, if we all just helped advocate for each other, if we all, came together as a community, the therapy, there are a lot of therapists that exist, but local therapy communities, it can feel very small. It can feel it can feel small, but at the same time, it can feel oversaturated, if that even makes sense. But if we were just there for each other more, and part of the reason why I enjoy talking with you, is because I know that there isn't competition between us. I live in Wisconsin, you live in Texas. The problem that I have with networking and connecting with other therapists in my area is that you go in to meet with them and it feels very competitive. It, like, no one wants to be nice to you. They either want something from you, they want to exploit you or figure out how they can make money off of you. And it's sad because you meet with these therapists in your area and you're like, wow, like, you meet some greedy people, you meet some, people who don't have good intentions. They want to extrapolate something from you, they want something from you. But it's very much framed as like, oh, hey girl, just come meet with me for coffee. And then it doesn't end up being that at all. So that's so much, from learning how to be a business owner and learning how to be a therapist in the real world, I've really come to enjoy connecting with therapists that, do not live in my state, don't live in my area, because it just feels, I don't know, there's something about it that feels safer. It, I feel like people have better intentions. It doesn't feel that competitive, like icky feeling where, when we talked the last time we talked for like 3 hours, I was like, we just had a conversation like two human beings, two therapists with very similar stories. And like at no point in time did I ever think like, oh, she's trying to get something out of me, or she wants, I have something that she needs or wants. Like, it didn't feel transactional at all. It just felt like two humans talking to each other. So it's sad that like it's hard to find that in like a local community.
Oh yeah. My area is oversaturated, and two, um I've kind of been labeled here. And then three, which hurt me the most, is when I got fired, it was like pretty quick pretty quick. You know, it was like the next day. And I wasn't allowed to say bye to my clients. And I had about, I think I had like 13 at the time. That's 13 people walking around thinking that I abandoned them, but I wasn't allowed to talk to them. I wasn't allowed to contact them or anything. And um, so I have that against me too. So I just wish, if, I honestly, if everything had to be that way, had to end that way, that's fine. But I just wish that I could have talked to my clients and told them, like, hey, it's not my choice, you know, like just things happen. I just need you to know that I want to be here. I just can't right now. Like, it breaks my heart just thinking about them right now. And that was like years ago. And
Mhm.
I just want, um, like you said, the just talking to other people in the area, there's always an ulterior motive, and it infuriates me because that's like what the world is, you know, and it's very rare that you can find someone genuine. So when I talked to you and we got to speak, it was very therapeutic for me, and I was
Yeah,
so grateful, and it instilled like this sense of hope that I didn't have, because I know that there's more than just me and you out there, you
for sure.
know. And while we can still have anger and resentments and be, I'm a little bitter, I got a little bitterness, but that bitterness will work itself
Mhm.
out. You know, it will. I'll sit with it and I'll work with it, but I'm not going to put that out in the world or in this industry, because this industry needs a lot of help. It it's
For sure.
breaking, like it's broken. And so my goal here, it's not, yes, shed light. Let's shed light on the issues, but let's find solutions, you know?
Definitely. And I think too, I think a lot of people, it's really easy for people to even listen to this and then at the end go like, okay, girls, like we hear your bitching and complaining in your rant, but like, what are you gonna do about it? Or like, will then give us a solution. I don't have all the answers. If, part of the thing that I think surprises people about therapy or therapists is that I think a lot of people are just assuming that we're all knowing beings, that you go to a therapist because you have a question and they have the answer, but that's just not how it works. Sometimes I have an idea of what I think the answer should be, but I don't have a magic wand. I'm not magical. I just listen to people talk and I help them work through whatever it is that they're struggling to navigate in life. That's what it comes down to. So I don't have a perfect answer. I also think that, a lot of nuance is lost. And today, I don't want people thinking that, that we're just saying, well, all graduate programs are bad and all internships are harmful and all, we should just get rid of all group practices. They shouldn't even be allowed to operate. I'm not saying any of that. And I'm also not saying, that I hate this. It's funny, like you've mentioned, I wake up every day and I love what I do. There's just a lot of aspects, when you're not in private practice, when you're working for somebody else, where there is always an ulterior motive. If you have a supervisor that is also the owner of the practice, do you think that any decision, anytime you go to them with a question and they have to make a decision, do you think, really, do you think that the decision isn't going to be from the mind frame or the frame of mind of making more money? So do you really think that if you go to a supervisor or a boss that owns the practice, knowing that they're obviously getting a cut of every single session that you have, do you really think if you go to them and you say, hey, I kind of feel like this client's outside of my scope of practice. How should I, ethically, transfer them to somebody else or refer them out? Do you think the owner, the person getting money from that session, knowing that clients are already hard to get, do you think that they're going to look at you and think of your best interests? Of course not. They're going to think of theirs. They're going to think of lining their own pockets. So the answer is probably going to be, oh no, just continue working with them. Okay, but I just told you they're outside of my scope of practice and that's unethical. And a lot of these things, I use the word ethics because a lot of these people, it gets lost. I don't know what it is with some seasoned therapists. I don't know if it's because they've been in the game too long. I don't know if it's because they've been in the game so long that they don't remember what ethics are. I don't know what it is, but I sit here and I'm like, so many of these things are, some of the things that we're talking about are illegal. Some of the things are not technically illegal, but it's not considered to be ethical, so it's still wrong. Something doesn't need to be illegal for it to be inherently wrong to do, like the caseload transfers or the non-competes or the restrictive covenants, all of that stuff is unethical. You know, our ethics tell us if we can, if possible, if ethically possible, continuity of care is what we should do. But then all of these practices or all of these agencies, they say, you know what, if you're going to quit, we own your clients. They need to stay with us. You can't tell them where you're going. And that's ethically wrong. I can't imagine how traumatic it must have been for your clients to wake up one day knowing that you were their therapist, and then the next day they, you know, call the agency that you were working at or the group practice, and then they're like, oh, well, Brittany's no longer working here, but you can see this person. That's extremely traumatic, and that was not your fault at all, like at all. And so it's terrible that there are, you know, your clients could be walking around thinking, oh, my therapist, that bitch, I can't believe she didn't tell me where she was going, you know, but it wasn't up to you. And that, you know, it sucks that a lot of times when we have to make these decisions or decisions are made on our behalf, that the fault still comes down on us, that the anger is still misguided and misdirected towards us when it's like, I would not have done it that way. I had to do what I, you know, signed a contract to do or whatever it is. And a lot of like, just a lot of the things that we experience or that our clients experience on our behalf wasn't even our fault or our doing or our idea or something that we wanted to do. I can think of a number of policies at places where I've worked where I've sat there and I've thought like, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't feel like that's ethical. Why are we doing this? Well, I wish that I could have done better and I could have done this. And it's like, it wasn't our fault. There's a lot of things that are told to us that are not true. Or you ask 10 different therapists an ethics question and every single therapist has a different response. And it's very hard because there are a lot of gray areas in the mental health space to where like it's really easy for us to do something wrong and not know that it's wrong, or try to do something because we were told that this is how you're supposed to do it, and then you sit back and then you question, well, why are we doing it this way? And I feel like as a field where we're failing is a lot of us have been told for years and years and years, this is how you do it, this is what you're supposed to do, but not enough of us are sitting here going, hey, why are we doing it like this? And shouldn't we consider maybe doing it this way? But then the minute people like us raise our hands in class or wherever, and we're like, hey, like, why are we doing this? You know, people get upset for questioning.
Cue the eye
for
rolls.
questioning. Yeah.
When people like us raise our hands, everybody's like, oh, here we go. Here we go again. But people that are listening, I want you all to understand ethics is like drilled into our heads from like day one of school to they scare you with ethics, right? So when we get out of school and we're just like, ethically, no, but then they're like, nah, it's fine, or but it's kind of like, what the fuck?
Right. And the thing that I always like sat, and I still think I sit here and I'm like, this is where I'm confused. We learn these ethics in school, they're drilled into us, but the minute it's an employer, they sit there and they go, oh, well, yeah, we have to follow the ethics, but like for clients, not for employees. And I'm like, why wouldn't we just do the same thing across the board? Like, obviously, the relationship is different, it's not the same, but like, there's no excuses. Like, you can, like, especially these group practices that are owned by therapists, do better, do better, do better. I have like no other words to say other than do better, because it's really sad. You can sit there and you can go, you know what? Nobody expects a billion-dollar company to be ethical. Okay. Like we know. Okay. No one expects these huge billion-dollar agencies to treat their therapists ethically. They should, but nobody expects it because it's like, come on, let's be realistic. But then when you go to a practice or an agency or a company that's ran by a therapist, I guess I'm the dummy for assuming like, oh, well, if it's a therapist running it, then it must be ethically ran, right? I was not right.
No, no, you are not. There's plenty of group therapy group therapy practices in my little town. One in specific that's huge, by the way, but it's just like I just call it like a internship mill. Like
Mm-hmm.
it is a moneymaker, that group practice. And it's strictly because you get unpaid labor. You get 100% of the profits from all of those. Because it got to the point, what's happening now is, yes, they get a bunch of interns. Yes, they can supervise them, but that is 100% profit. A hundred
Right,
percent profit. And then and then if these interns decide to stay on as associates, they're going to still keep hiring interns to get 100% profit. They're not going to help you fill your they're not going to help you fill your calendar anymore. And suddenly you have an intern with 18 clients, and here I am struggling with 8 because they had to pay me something now.
right.
So it's just, group practices are becoming just internship mills,
Yeah,
and then they'll throw you on your ass, if you don't step in line, or if you're not okay with getting exploited as an associate or even a fully licensed therapist. So
right.
it's broken. It's this broken system, and it's gotten worse. Like, and so now I think that there are people like us that's like, okay, like I want to be a therapist. I do, but like you're breaking my spirit. So in an effort to keep going, I'm gonna speak out, yes, but I'm also gonna build my business at the same time, and hopefully some real change can happen. Because talking to you and sharing this, it is therapeutic for me. It makes me feel less alone. Um, it's better for my healing and my mental health to be able to speak about it, and not in a not in a gross way, like I don't have any malice in my heart. Like I genuinely want real change. And in a world that like looks like it's burning, like when you look or watch the news or anything, I like to know that I can come back to this corner that I have built for myself, or I'm trying to build, and I know that there's some light there. There's some good there. Like and there are pockets of good everywhere. So like there's a pocket of good here in Texas, and there's a pocket of good in Wisconsin. Like, and that gives me hope because I know that there's more pockets of light out there, and I want to keep that happening. I want to keep it growing, and I want people to be less scared. And what I hope in the future is that we talk again, having done this business thing for a while, because you and I are both new. We're still building our practices, and I
Mhm.
hope that we will have time to talk and be like, well, this worked and this didn't. And it's not going to be a $3,000 masterclass.
Right. Buy my course. Yeah,
Yeah.
no. I mean, that can be a whole nother episode. Same with like psychology today. I could talk about that too. But it gives me hope too, and it's also really therapeutic and validating for me because I feel like the problem is a lot of times when you go to talk to other therapists about these issues, it almost is like they become a robot. And I look at them and it's almost like knock knock, is anybody home? Like you look at them and you're like, just their
Hello.
reaction when you talk about exploitation, it's like blink twice if you need help. Like I don't think we're exploited. I think everything in our field is perfect, and there's no systemic change needed. And I'm like, hello, like, am I even talking to a real human being? And then I think, even deeper about like how are you even able to help your clients if you can't even be real about these things that are happening? Like I said, I get that there are people who it's easier for their mental health to not really care about things that don't directly impact them. I get that. Um, but like I think that you can care about multiple different things all at once. Am I saying that this is the worst thing to ever happen to a human being ever? No, but it doesn't need to be in order for like things need to be changed and it needs to be talked about. Um, So, even when I feel like people might even listen to this and be like, well, who even cares about what you guys are saying because you guys are out of it now. You guys are, but business ownership, it's yes, we are away and removed from a lot of these issues that we're talking about, and I am forever grateful for that. I say all the time, if anything were to happen to where I feel like I couldn't sustain my business, if my options were have to go back to community mental health, or a group practice or work for somebody else or change careers, I think I would probably just have to change careers. And even that coming out of my mouth is really painful for me to even say. I believe in myself wholeheartedly and I work my butt off to be successful. So I don't foresee that happening, but you never know in life. And I would be doing clients a disservice, truly, if every day I came to work and I resented the work that I did. I hated the way that I was being treated. I felt burnt out. I'm telling other people to do self-care, but I don't even have the time or the means to do self-care because of how my employer is treating me, that sort of thing. Clients don't deserve that either. Clients deserve our best. And a therapist doing their best is a therapist who has food in their belly, is a therapist who has a roof over their head, is a therapist who doesn't have to go home and struggle with bills or thinking, how am I going to make this? Oh my gosh, if this client leaves, am I going to be able to make rent for my office? EHRs, they're only getting more expensive. A lot of our overhead fees every year goes up in price, and so the world and our society is creating this space where it's becoming exponentially harder and harder and harder for individual solo therapists like us to thrive and to make a living. But I'm not giving up anytime soon. But yeah, it's sad that despite the years of school, the years of training, the big exams that we have to take, all of that to say that if I couldn't be doing what I'm doing right now, I would probably have to find a different passion and I would probably be miserable working any other job. So I am very thankful and grateful. I don't even feel like we're coming off as being ungrateful, but of course, I'm sure that there are going to be people that are like, oh, you girls are so negative. Like, can't you just find the positivity? And I can. There's lots of positivity in the mental health field. Meeting you was a positive experience. I know that there are good therapists out there, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't talk about the bad ones and the people that own businesses and shouldn't own businesses. We need to talk about that too. Two things can be true at the same time. We need to talk about all the things, the good, the bad, the ugly, because if we don't and we just keep ignoring it, then these things are going to keep happening to people, and there isn't going to be change.
That's true. Oh, that test. What was that test called when you get out of school?
Well, I took the national counseling exam. I don't know if it's different for you.
Yeah, the NCE. Oh
Yeah,
God. I cried.
I did too after.
Like we got like a little break and you take the
Yes.
first 100 questions, then you get a 15-minute break. I cried. And then I was like, and then I was like, okay, now let's go finish. I passed though. I
It was
passed.
intense. Like, I don't know what your experience was, but they didn't pat me down, but I'd had to take off all my layers. I couldn't even
Oh
chew
yeah,
gum.
me too. Me too.
They took palm prints. Like, I was like, do you need a piece of my hair and a vial of blood for this exam? But no,
God.
halfway through, I cried after, but halfway through, I went out in the hallway. I literally did some like somatic like tapping and some like exercises. And yeah, no, that exam could have easily just been worked into the curriculum, but that's just me. But then they wouldn't make money off the exam, so they're not going to do that either.
Oh yeah. More
That's just another
fees,
way
more
that we're
fees.
exploited, right? Exactly. So yeah, no, that was not a fun time, but I studied for months. So for someone to go through all this school, go through all this training, go through all this studying, go through all of these traumatic things, all of these opportunities where you and I could have very well given up and thrown in the towel and we didn't. We have some grit, we have some perseverance, and I feel like that is part of what makes us good therapists is like I was like I looked at myself in the mirror one day and I was like, I'll be damned if I let this field chew me up and spit me out. I'm not going to let it happen. I'm just not. And so I feel very like I'm in a position where, I own my own business and I feel happy with that. Are there challenges? Of course there is. There's challenges with any workplace environment, even working for yourself. But I would rather have these challenges that I'm having as a solo business owner than deal with the challenges that I was dealing with before any day.
I agree. One last thing before we go, and because I want to end on like a happier note,
Yeah.
or just a happy note. I know if there are maybe there are interns listening, or maybe there are new therapists who are starting out, who are burnt out, who want to leave, are people still in school. And I don't, all of this is discouraging information, right? So I had wished that someone told me all of this before, and nobody ever did. And it's just, but it's fine, because I think if they did, I wouldn't be here now. I have gone to school for this. So in an effort to not persuade people to quit now, what would be your advice for anyone listening that feels like they do want to quit?
Yeah. It's tough because like there's two ways. There's like the thing that I want to say, which is like, of course, I'm an advocate for therapists. I advocate, to help other people. So it's tough because part of me wants to say, advocate for yourself. But you and I both know that we've been burned by the system for advocating for ourselves. So I don't want to encourage people to advocate if they're in these situations because it can burn you. So I guess, but I also don't want to discourage people and say, you know what, you shouldn't speak up. So I think that it's just important to just be, aware of, I think everybody should, in an ideal world, advocate for themselves. But please understand that sometimes when you do the right thing, which is you feel empowered to advocate for yourself or somebody else, and it ends up burning you, don't give up. If being a therapist is really what you love, if this is your dream, if this is what you want to wake up and do every day, you can get there. It's going to be really hard. You're going to be pushed back to square one. You're going to, be thrown into the deep end. You're going to be sometimes feeling like you're being set on fire. A lot of things are going to feel unfair, and they are. You're going to encounter a lot of people in this field. You're going to encounter therapists where you look and you're like, you shouldn't be in this field at all. You're going to experience people that are greedy, who just want your money. There are people who will, there are people that will lift you up, but there are also people that will, that will step on anybody to get to the top. So I think that the big takeaway is just to be aware that these things happen. Don't blindly trust authority. I don't care if someone has a PhD. I don't care if they're a doctorate. I don't care if you're a psychologist. I don't care if you're a psychiatrist. I don't care if you've been doing therapy for 30 years or 30 minutes. You have to critically think about these things because not everybody is your friend, unfortunately. Not every therapist is a therapist for the same reasons. Not every therapist is a good person. And so I think that, being careful, don't give too much of yourself away, have boundaries with other professionals, and don't just blindly assume that, oh, well, this person is a big pillar in the community, or this person has a lot of money, or this person has a nice website, or this person, offers a million different services. Looks can be deceiving. And I think the biggest mistake that I made coming into the field was not taking a look at, not really pulling back the layers and just taking everything at face value. So there's a way to be in this space and thrive and be successful. But your safety is always important. And so just paying attention to these things, collecting data, collecting information, recognizing patterns, asking questions. A lot of questions I was too scared to ask. I didn't want to ask because I was met with uncomfortability. So I encourage people all the time. Reddit is a really good place to look, because a lot of time when people are talking anonymously, they're able to share how they really feel about things. A lot of experiences you can see on there. Even in these Facebook groups or whatever, if you're able to post anonymously, a lot of times I see people, they don't have the courage to ask a question with their name and profile behind it, and I totally get that, because a lot of people, even therapists, are super judgmental, or they don't want to talk about these things, or they benefit from the harm being, happening and going on, so they don't want to try to stop it. Ask questions to therapists in other states and other communities. We all have our own experiences, and it can be super helpful to just ask a question to someone, because it can save you a lot of time and energy and pain in the long run, if you ask questions and you feel comfortable opening up to other therapists, just in a safe way, guarding yourself, having boundaries, things like that.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really good. I think it's important to be really in tune with like yourself, because if you're disconnected from yourself, you're not going to know who's in your energy field. Like, you're just not. There are coworkers that don't have your back. In fact, coworkers in a group practice are often in competition with you. So remember that. Um, that's kind of a negative thing to say, but that's one of the things that got me in trouble. Like, so
Yeah,
if you're in a position where you just need to graduate, or you're at that gate that's being kept, because like you said, there's a lot of gatekeeping. If you just need to get through the gate, sometimes you just need to zip it, get through the gate. So,
for
all right.
sure.
This has been so fun. I loved having you. I love talking to you. If we get off this call and decide we want to keep talking, then we will plan that. But thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for being my first guest and not laughing at me when I asked you to be on.
Of course not.
And I hope that people will get our message and understand that we are really looking for change.
For sure. I think it's really easy to, like we've said before, it'd be really easy for you and I to just like rant, we're bitch, and be like, well, we only care about these things because it happened to us individually, and we were, it wasn't fair for us, but we don't care. No, we're sharing these things because we don't want other people to have similar experiences. We want other people to feel protected, and we want other people to feel heard. We want other people to know that, like, hey, there are therapists that are talking about this. There are people who are open about their experiences being harmed by the mental health field in and of itself. You just sometimes have to go looking extra hard. But you'll find them. We exist. There are people that are going to be listening to this, and they're going to go, oh my gosh, I feel like I could have been there, reliving what we've shared, they've also experienced. Then there's going to be people who can't relate, or there are going to be people that listen to it and they're like, well, I don't really care what these people have to say. And
That's
that is all fine. That's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. So if anyone is watching this and you have questions, or you want to reach out, or you just need community, you can contact me at basementphilosophies@gmail.com. And can they contact you? Let them know
Yeah.
if they can contact you.
Yeah. My email is Alexandra at grayareacounseling-wi.com.
All right. So just reach out if you have any questions, comments, concerns, and I will talk to you all soon. Bye.
Hi, thank you.